So while searching the web for more info on the fascinating creaking skull, I actually stumbled upon a video where there was a strategy to obtain the Guardian Soul after beating the boss 100% of the time. It requires certain inputs to be pressed for manipulating the game RNG, and after some practice I was able to get it down for myself, and the interesting part is that not only is it really consistent, but there are two setups that seem to work. The trick is primarily used for speedrunning, which I don't really do, but at the same time you can never go wrong with guaranteeing a soul drop for a casual playthrough, especially considering that it's a pretty good power up. The first thing you'll need to do is start up a new game and then go to the first save room before this Creaking Skull boss fight. For my testing, the equipment that you use doesn't affect the values required for the soul drop, and thus it doesn't matter if you use a knife or the short sword. The souls you have equipped seem to also not matter, but just make sure you have the wing skeleton, as it is paramount for getting the soul. So what you'll need to do is make it to the room at the very end here, but unfortunately there are a bunch of skeletons in the way, so you just gotta get rid of them first. But yeah, after you make it to the end of the hall, you could just have to suspend your game afterward. When it boots up, you can load your save game and then do one of two setups that I know of. The first one requires that you jump slash 3 times without hitting any of the candles, then you gotta backdash after the axe armor is off screen. And once you actually get into the room, you gotta land 6 spears, which all have to hit 3 times, which is gonna be tricky at first, but you'll get the hang of it. And then after that, you gotta backdash into him and then jump slash him, and then you'll get the skull every time. The last part is tricky because you have to wait for the animation of him either crouching or striking with the big femur bone, which only gives you a few frames to work with, but if you do it correctly, you'll get the soul every time. I did fail this many times to try to do this, so don't worry if you don't get it after your first few attempts. Just keep going at it and you will get the glorious Creaking Skull soul. The setup can be failed in so many different ways. It can be a failed spear, jump slashing too early, or even forgetting to jump back at all. I mean, there's a lot of ways that this can go wrong. There's also another method with a different setup before entering the room, but the pattern inside remains the same. All you need to do for this one is just jump slash at the 3rd candle, so this method's a lot easier than the original. It's interesting that both of these setups seem to influence the boss RNG that gives the Guardian Soul, and since the setup is simpler, it doesn't really make sense to do the other method unless you just feel like it. Also, despite searching for how player actions actually affect the boss soul RNG, I couldn't find anything explaining in detail, but rather just certain inputs affect certain drop RNG, and that's all was left with is just videos, guides on like certain soul drops. Most of the stuff that I actually found were complaining about how bad the soul drops were in the game, which I always found to be kind of funny and frustrating at the same time, as it kept me from trying to 100% the game at some point. But if you're playing a casual playthrough, the game gives you enough souls to work with anyways, but the addition of getting the Creaking Skull soul on every playthrough will make it a little more fun. Like I said earlier, this trick is primarily used in Aria of Sorrow speedruns, but hey, I found this pretty interesting to do myself, even if I'm not speedrunning, and the Creaking Skull meme alone made me stumble upon this neat trick, and the soul is pretty good. But yeah, that's about it, so, you know, after you get it, you just go nuts with it. The original videos will be in the description below, and I definitely recommend that you check them out. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you found this video useful in some capacity, subscribe for more content, and leave down a comment below to add to the conversation. See y'all later!